This is Dr.RED Panda.
Have you ever wondered how the Nazis successfully brainwashed the German people and built an extreme nationalist society? Are these brainwashing methods still effective today? Hello, I'm Dr. Red Panda, and today we're going to decode the Nazi brainwashing techniques. What ideology did the Nazis promote? Before we delve into the Nazi brainwashing techniques, let's first take a brief look at the ideology promoted by the Nazis. The Nazi Party, officially known as the National Socialist German Workers' Party. From the name, those with quick reflexes might guess that the party's political thought shares some similarities with Marxism. That's right, both the Nazi Party and Marxism emphasize struggle rather than coexistence. The difference lies in the core focus. Marxism centers around class struggle, viewing classes as communities with shared interests, and its aim is to eliminate other classes. In contrast, the core of Nazism is nationalism, where the nation is seen as the community with shared interests, and the goal of the struggle is to eliminate so-called inferior nations. Moreover, like Marxism, Nazism also has collectivist tendencies. The difference lies in how the collective is defined. One is class, the other is ethnicity. So, what is collectivism? In short, it means that the interests of the collective are prioritized over individual interests. For the Nazis, this meant that the interests of the nation were more important than individual interests. As Goebbels famously said, "You are nothing. Your nation is everything. You are just a number, a production unit. You must obey the will of the nation and the state." Now, the question arises, who can represent the will of the nation and the state? Of course, it is the great leader and the party that lead the nation and the state. Therefore, the Nazis demanded that the German people must have absolute trust in and loyalty to the great leader and the party, and be ready to sacrifice at any time. You must believe that the direction pointed by the party and the great leader is the only correct one, and only by doing what the party and the great leader command will your life have meaning. So, what direction did the great leader Hitler and the Nazi Party point for Germany? It was to eliminate inferior nations, to purify the entire Germanic people into pure Aryans, and to expand territory through military means to achieve living space for the Germanic people. And so, World War II broke out. How could such an extreme ideology attract so many followers? Were the German people completely brainwashed before the war? Even if society was complex and the economy difficult, surely they still had some independent thinking left. But once I learned about the brainwashing techniques used by the Nazis, suddenly everything made sense. The Nazi brainwashing method, propaganda, and the iron fist. The Nazi brainwashing technique actually boils down to two main methods. The first one is propaganda. Specifically, it involved using the power of the state machinery to monopolize the dissemination of information. Through various media, the Nazis continuously indoctrinated people with their ideology, constantly spreading lies and ensuring that the dominant narrative surrounded every individual until it penetrated their minds, hearts, and souls. Goebbels once said, "You would never think that millions would give their lives for an economic plan, but they would die for a belief, and our movement's goal is to constantly bring us closer to that point." As for the specific propaganda methods, Goebbels outlined several key points. First, a lie repeated 1,000 times becomes the truth. Second, newspapers must serve the state. Third, the role of the press is to transmit the will of the rulers to the ruled, making them view hell as heaven. Fourth, mass media must be the tool of the party. Fifth, propaganda points must be clear, blunt, and powerful. Sixth, lies must be repeatedly spread and dressed up to make them believable. Seventh, radios must be designed to only receive German broadcasts. Of course, propaganda alone wasn't enough. People can't listen to the radio or read newspapers 24/7, so what happens when they aren't consuming media? How can you prevent them from using that time to think for themselves? This is where the concept of bread and circuses, or opium of the masses, came into play. Entertainment and distractions were strategically used to divert people's attention. As Hitler said, young people don't need judgment or critical thinking. Just give them cars, motorcycles, beautiful stars, exciting music, trendy fashion, and a sense of competition with their peers. The strategy was to strip young people of their ability to think critically and instead plant a deep-seated obedience to the leader's commands. They needed to instill in them a primal, animal-like hatred for any criticism of the nation, society, or the leader, convincing them that such dissent belonged to the evil minority and the heretics. The idea was to make everyone think alike, to believe that those who didn't share their views were enemies of the state. With relentless media propaganda and distractions provided by entertainment, most people would abandon independent thought and simply follow the great leader. However, when you actually need to mobilize them to take action, like willingly sending them to their deaths as cannon fodder, something more was needed. The failed art student Hitler had a solution. He turned to the power of culture and the arts to shape the people into modern-day Spartans. So, what created the Spartan society? It was the unique education system of ancient Greeks that shaped this. The entire cultural and educational system of the Greek classical era was based on poetry as a form of art. Greek poetry was often set to music, and with music's added influence, the soul would stir with emotion as it listened, creating an experience that was far more transcendent than ordinary happiness. On this foundation, dance was incorporated, giving poetry a religious-like ceremonial quality. Who wouldn't be moved by this? One of the most beloved choral songs of the Spartans went like this: "Let us obey the kings, for they are descendants of the gods, sons of Zeus himself, Cronos' child, and Hera's husband. Let this city be dedicated to Hera, and let the descendants of Kleos follow Phobos. They bring prophecies from Delphi and the divine realm, and victory and power will accompany the Spartans. For this is the oracle of Phobos concerning this city." As Spartan men grew up singing these songs, their hearts naturally filled with immense pride and honor for their city-state. The poetry taught them that they were descendants of the gods, and that the god of prophecy, Phobos, had foretold that their city would be a land of victory, the leader of all Greece. Moreover, every Spartan poem constantly repeated the word, "we." Even the audience, upon hearing it, would instinctively place themselves within that "we," internalizing a sense of identity rooted in a shared ancestry and bloodline. They began to perceive themselves as part of this exceptional group. In this way, they naturally obey the city-state and the king as described in the poem. Moreover, this submission to authority is not a tedious imposition, but a willing submission. This is the power of art. The Nazis employed the same method, using the creation of art that aligned with the official ideology to completely brainwash the German people. This ultimately succeeded in producing a large group of individuals filled with a sense of honor, who were willing to sacrifice their lives for the country. According to statistics, during World War II, Nazi Germany produced over 500 documentaries and feature films, 15 of which were in color. Speaking of this, one cannot help but mention the famous German director Leni Riefenstahl. This director was so exceptionally talented that her documentaries for the Nazis have since become banned films. It is said that even after the war ended, anyone who watched her films Triumph of the Will and Olympia in their entirety would be irresistibly compelled to join the Nazis. However, due to the remarkable achievements in photography techniques and aesthetics in her works, it was impossible to completely ban them. As a result, people could only edit her films into segments for educational purposes, and these clips can still be found online. Curious viewers can explore them for themselves. With media coverage on all fronts, coupled with distractions like entertainment and the powerful influence of official art, this combination of tactics could almost ensure that 90% of the German population would absorb, internalize, and be deeply influenced by the propaganda. But no matter how much the government promoted its message, there would always be individuals who remained resistant, still capable of independent thought and opposing Nazi ideology. So, how did the Nazis deal with these people? This is where the second brainwashing method came into play, the iron fist. Many of you have probably heard of the infamous Gestapo. The Gestapo, which stands for Geheime Staatspolizei, Secret State Police, in German, was essentially the Nazi regime's secret police. Its main task, in modern terms, was to catch dissenters. Through the Gestapo, the Nazis were able to monitor the actions and words of the people. If they detected any sign of rebellion, they would arrest the person, and sometimes even secretly execute them. As a result, The remaining 10% of individuals who maintained independent thinking had no choice but to submit to the Nazi ideology, joining the rest of the population in shouting, "Heil Hitler." So, this method shouldn't really be called brainwashing, it should be called mouthwashing. While I can't control your thoughts, at least I can make you obedient with your words. Through this, the Nazis used two powerful tactics, propaganda and the iron fist, to completely reshape the German people, turning the entire country into an extreme, inhuman community. At first, they believed that without the Nazi Party, there would be no Germany. They thought that without the leadership of the Nazis, Germany would be doomed. At the same time, they were deeply grateful to the Nazis and the Führer, believing that everything they had came from the party and the state. What they didn't realize was that it was their own sweat and blood that fattened the Nazis and the Gestapo, who took pleasure in spying on them. The saddest part was that, after being brainwashed, the German people lost all sense of right and wrong, couldn't distinguish between what was good or bad. They saw Mussolini as Germany's best friend, believing that German-Italian friendship was limitless, while regarding every other country as foreign hostile forces. During Hitler's rule, there were a group of clear-headed patriots who opposed the Nazi regime's totalitarian manipulation of the state machinery and the deception of the people. However, these true patriots were falsely labeled as traitors by the Gestapo. The general public, who were misinformed, saw them as thorns in the side, and even believed that they were threatening the stability of the country. This misunderstanding persisted until the end of World War II, when the German people finally reevaluated history and realized that patriotism does not equal support for the Nazis. True patriotism means defending the country from Nazi manipulation and upholding the rights of the people. Had the German public been aware of the dangers of the Nazis at the time, perhaps Germany could have avoided the war. Had no Germans joined the Nazi Party, they would not have had to live in fear and anxiety, nor bear the enormous costs of the regime's luxury and the oppressive Gestapo machinery. Unfortunately, the German people were deceived by lies, and the entire nation was dragged into disaster. This shows that the existence of the Nazis was the true cause of instability in Germany and the main factor that harmed the interests of the German people. Without the Nazis, Germany was reborn, the people's income greatly increased, life improved, and the country became a true world power. And that's a wrap for this episode of the video. I'm DR.RED Panda. If any of you have your own perspectives, or if you think there are any errors in the video, feel free to leave a comment in the discussion section. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Until next time, take care.